Everyone is vulnerable to being pinned when life plays hardball, whether it is a physical or mental health condition. No one can stand alone. For those who are not pinned, appreciate that it could be you or loved one someday. So when you see a chance to help someone, please do. They are not weak, they are pinned. Even a slight hand up and a listening ear can begin seriously lightening the load, change, or save a life. Help end stigma. Move from being pinned to purpose. Time for a hand up.
Hello, everyone. It's Jeff Moore. I'm the founder of the Pin to Purpose podcast, and it's a great pleasure for me today to introduce our guest, Shira Lazar, who's the founder at Creators for Mental Health. And I'll be introducing her more in a moment and then passing it over to her to begin our conversation. But just for those who haven't seen this podcast before, Pin to Purpose is designed to help shatter stigma, to have conversations about mental health and well-being, and to give people a hand up on their healing journeys. So I'd like to begin just by reading a brief bio for Shira, and then again, I'll pass it over to her to introduce herself further. So Shira Lazar is an Emmy-nominated digital culture expert, keynote speaker, and mental health advocate with over 1 million followers across platforms. As the founder of What's Trending, a pioneering digital news brand with 3+ million followers, she has been shaping the creator economy and social media trends for 2 decades. Shira has shared her expertise on stages like South by Southwest, CES, and NAB, and she was named one of Fast Company's most influential women in technology, honored on Variety's Women of Impact list, and featured on Adweek's AI Trailblazers Power 100 and NFT Now's NFT 100 Most Influential list. In 2020, Shira co-founded Peace Inside Live, a well-being organization dedicated to crafting bespoke programs for forward-thinking companies and teams. She's also the co-author of the JOMO Journal, if I've got that pronouncing it correctly, a daily practice for the joy of missing out. This work led to the launch of Creators for Mental Health, an initiative focused on bringing mental health tools to the creator economy through events and community programming. So there's a lot more to say, but I think I will stop there for a second, as today we're going to focus a lot on her work with founders and at Creators, as a founder, at Creators for Mental Health. And Shira, welcome. And why don't I pass it over to you to say a few more introductory words.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me and for your work that you're doing. Actually, I got introduced to you through my dad because you went to elementary school together, right? Or high school?
Yeah, we went to the same high school, and
It was high school.
We're both big tennis fans, especially, and so
That too.
I like your dad's game. He's a tough competitor.
Yeah, I'm sure. So you go way back, and he saw what you're up to, and so he connected us. So really love how full circle this is. And yeah, I've been really focused on how do we use the social media creator space to destigmatize mental health and advocate for the mental well-being of all of us, especially our communities, but also not to forget this growing workforce of creators who are mouthpieces and amplify a lot of messages, but a lot of people rarely ask them how they're doing. And the work of being a digital creator, it's not just about being an influencer. It has its perks, but also a lot of instability in terms of finances. You think about all the money and Mr. Beast and all that, but there's actually a lot of ups and downs. And if you're not the 1%, you're part of the creator middle class, and that isn't really stable. And so between the financial stuff that is not consistent, to obviously putting yourself out there in front of so many people constantly, it's a very vulnerable thing. It takes a lot of courage, but there's a lot of harassment that happens, and bullying, and then a lot of comparison, and constantly checking metrics, and the need for validation because your work is based on you getting those results. It could really impact you and your mental health, as well as just the fact that this industry is so not standardized.
Mm.
As big as it is, we're talking about an industry that will be $500 billion by 2030. It's still a bit of a free for all. There's not a lot of standards with contracts, with how much money you make, depending on what you post. A lot of people are trying to constantly get stuff for free. And there's a bit of a feeling like, you want to do it, you need to do it in order to keep up. A lot of self advocating that happens. We don't really have unions. A lot of people are trying, but because we're such a fragmented industry and global, that becomes hard. So a lot of great things about being in this space, but a lot of gaps. And so all of that could lead someone who's put all their eggs in that basket, and this is what they do and they love doing it, but it could lead to a lot of surprising things.
Mm,
And a lot of that has to do with the mental well-being of
mhm,
the digital gig workers that maintain this space and this economy, that don't have, health insurance in the US at least. A
mm,
lot of times don't have money consistently for therapy, don't have people to talk to about it, really, work alone, live alone. So again, ripe for uh, mental health issues, right? And possibly
mhm,
to something even worse.
mm,
We did a study this year on creators and mental health in North America, the most comprehensive study that has ever been done.
mm.
Because with this work that I was doing, me being a creator myself and witnessing my peers, I knew what was happening. I've seen it with my own eyes, I've experienced it, but there wasn't necessarily data around it. And so we did a survey, and the survey was exactly what we thought would happen in terms of the results from creators. And we could get into that. I've kind of said a bit of a spiel here, but
No, no,
I can continue
no.
as long as I want, or as
Yeah,
you
no,
want.
no. It's fantastic. It's so important, and I think there's so much to learn here and share, and hopefully give people a hand up based on this. Um, I always ask our guests, and just if they what motivated them to really do the types of work they're doing, and often it is their own lived experience or personal journeys or family or friends around them. But I'm wondering if there's any comments you'd like to make in terms of what your biggest motivators are for founding creators for mental health. You've explained what's going on around you and you've seen, et cetera. But if there's anything else you wanted to share along those lines.
Yeah, I mean, definitely growing up, I had some family members close to me that dealt with some things, but uh, you know, I guess when I was going through that with them, I didn't realize how much maybe it probably impacted the family dynamic. And luckily, that person is on the other side and is so amazing now, but had a hard, rough patch, right? Definitely. And I think that more for me, it popped up for me personally as I had a really uh, quick kind of a journey in my 20s, getting a lot of success and doing a lot of cool things in Los Angeles, and being alone in LA is not easy, and especially in the entertainment industry, especially when you're talent, where you're kind of like constantly, I hate using this word, but like pimping yourself out, right? You go into these audition rooms, you're judged. It takes a thick skin to not take that personally. And also so much of, yeah, the work is intertwined with validation. And you really need to work on yourself to know that you're okay and you're worthy, whether you get a job or not, whether someone likes you or not, thinks you're beautiful or not, smart based on what they think is smart. I don't know, all of it.
Mm,
And
mm,
I think over the years of experiencing that over and over again, and not having a lot of people to talk to about that, and then also going through a bit of my own professional trauma where I was like very publicly fired. I was top of my game, like I had a job at CBS News and a lot of attention, Billboard, Times Square. I was about to sign a seven-figure deal, and like overnight, everything fell apart
mm. Yeah,
because
very, very
of
tough.
something that was, to be honest, looking back, like not a huge deal, but it, the industry, at the time with social media, it just was. It still is the Wild West, but it was even more. And we were so early. We were kind of like the kids doing the crazy things at this legacy media brand. And so I think when this thing happened, it just raised even more flags, and it was an easy way to like cut the cord, right, with us, with a relationship already, we were the ones testing the boundaries constantly because that's what we do. We're a digital disruptor, right? So, um, and again, it felt so out of my control. I wasn't allowed to even, talk to the execs. Like no one would talk to me. So imagine you're dealing with these people you've been in business with for years. Someone on your team does something under your watch. So I take responsibility for that. But it was just like so many layers that were so out of my control. And yet I was really thrown under the bus for that. And as the boss and the leader, I get that, but it felt at the time very unfair.
Mm,
Do I feel that still now? Maybe. No. But more so it was I didn't know what to do with the feelings of I was very like heartbroken, right?
mhm,
By the whole situation because it felt like it was so out of my control. Um it that you also lose your own sovereignty in a way in that. And then there's a bit of I lost a lot of self-trust of like, can I trust myself? And if I make a mistake, what will happen again? Whereas making a mistake is so human
mhm,
and you need to have compassion for yourself. But going through that and seeing, that nightmare, it's like your nightmare come true.
mm,
Um, that all really messed me up. And I didn't actually go to therapy right away, although I had such a great support system around me. But there was a lot going on, I think, that I needed to process. And that probably came up from my past also, obviously. Like usually, especially adult traumas, bring up stuff that is unhealed wounds, right?
mhm,
And so my sense of self was a bit thrown off,
mhm.
right? And my
Absolutely.
identity. And over the next, like, I would say 5 to 10 years, really the next 5 years, there was a lot of probably semi-unhealthy behavior, um, and confusion and just yes, a lot of numbing probably, and then,
Mhm,
coming out of that, realizing I was just not feeling myself and unhappy, and I was like, "Oh, this doesn't feel like who I am, and either I need to switch my
mm,
jobs completely, or maybe there's something that I'm like missing here." And so I kind of started then my own personal growth journey. So I didn't end up, to the extreme in like a hospital. Sometimes it doesn't need to be that even, but
Of
I kind
course.
of had
Oh,
that moment
absolutely.
where I was just I remember talking to my dad actually, and it was like, "But I'm crying all the time. I don't know what to do. I'm crying all the time. I can't stop crying all the time." And he's like, "Well, you got to
Yeah.
work on that." Like, of course, our parents, like, his generation, bless my dad, love him, but like, they were told also to suck it up, right?
Right, right, right.
Or like something's wrong with you, and then it
Mm,
becomes, Jewish anxiety
mm,
neuroses, like,
mm,
and that
mm,
doesn't help. And then you just kind of retreat because you don't want to worry anyone. And so I
mm,
think I was holding on to a lot of that. And then I just said it one day, was like, I'm sick of being sad and like feeling like not alive, basically. Like I think I
mm.
actually had a minor depression, didn't get diagnosed because I wasn't going to therapy at the time. Because every journal entry from that year was like, I'm so tired. I'm just tired. I just want to sleep all the time. Why am I so tired? And
Absolutely.
I probably should have gone to therapy at that point, and it took me, thankfully, a lot of the work that I did kind of got me a bit back, outside, exercising, like
Mhm,
doing fun things that I used to love, and like,
mhm,
although that's not always the answer, but you know what I mean? There was certain things that kind of started to get me grounded. And then, long story short, and then also witnessing, I was in a relationship with an addict, and and he
mhm,
had
mhm.
also his own mental health issues.
Right,
Um, so I think between what I was going through and this person who was also a
right.
creator, witnessing him, I was just like, yeah, there's a lot going on in this space. And then, after as I was working on myself, talking to a lot of people, starting to get comfortable talking about this stuff, I started realizing how much, um, we're all obviously going through something, and
Mm,
how much some of my peers needed support and wanted to
Mm,
talk through it with someone.
mhm, mhm,
And so just over the years, yeah, it led me to launching a wellness organization during COVID. And then in 2024, I had the opportunity to do an event with some sponsors around um, mental health and nutrition. It was this AI company, and I said I would love to introduce you to some creators, for marketing and all that. So I
mhm.
was like, why don't I put together an event that's like a mental health creator event, and we'll get all the sponsors there, and
Amazing,
well,
amazing.
yeah. And that's how Creators for Mental Health started,
Well,
and I just
eh,
called it that,
eh,
and it was easy peasy. And then we saw such a great response, did another event in New York, and then I went into 2025 wanting to expand it, and that's what we did.
well, incredible. I want to go back for a second too, because you mentioned along the way in your own recovery, part of the solution was to get back to some of the things you used to love. And in my own kind of pin to purpose initiative, the purpose side includes that, to try
Yeah,
to remind people when they're super down that there were things they were so passionate about. And some of those they
yeah,
may be so numb that they're not feeling anymore. But some of them may be like the North Star or getting back to great people or great situations, which rekindles a spark as part of their healing journey. It's not their healing journey, but it's part of what they, can focus on and look forward to. And the additional purpose of, and I would imagine, and I want to explore this more with you, both the organization you founded during COVID and then creators, but it gives people a purpose because they're invited into a community and they may need that hand up, but they may also benefit so much from new friendships or the realization of our common humanity. And I sadly in some ways, but positively in others, like they say there's nothing new under the sun. We all have unique lives, but we all have common threads depending
yeah,
on what's happening, right? Um,
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, for me, it was a mix between just doing things to do them without a goal. Like a lot of times as you become older, you're so goal oriented, it needs to be part of a company, monetization, blah, blah, blah. And it was just like, no, just doing it for purely the experience
yeah,
of doing it. And also doing things that I had put aside. I'll do it another time or in the future or when I have X, Y, and Z. And I found that for me at least, um, that created a lot of sadness, and I would say probably could lead to more for me like that depression energy when I feel like I just keep waiting. Like it's when I take action around the things that I want to create, for me that creates joy. It's not about being
yeah,
perfect, but it's like the more
absolutely.
like I started putting things aside, it was like almost like I wasn't living, and it made me
Mm,
depressed, right? Like even little things like buying a bike. Like I kept saying, I'm gonna buy a bike, I'm gonna buy a bike, and just never buying that bike and never bicycling. And it's then when I started doing those things, it started to wake me up a bit. Like you start building self-worth because you're telling yourself, yeah, I'm worthy. Like you want to do this thing, and and with your inner child or your soul or your spirit, and I'm going to help make that happen. It's kind of building that self-trust with yourself again, right?
mm,
And your inner, if you do inner child work,
yeah.
your inner child that's looking towards your current self to say like, take care of me, right? And for
Mhm,
me, it was really about rebuilding that and listening to myself and my needs and
mhm,
acting on it. Because so many, I had put those needs aside so much because of,
mhm,
trying to keep up with everything, with work,
yeah.
with this, with that, with what I thought I should be doing, with what I thought would make me happy. And it was when I was doing those things or, going traveling. I hadn't traveled for years and it was killing me. I was like dying inside because I
Mm,
love traveling. So I just started
mhm.
saying yes. And like, yeah, there were moments where you have to be responsible, obviously financially. Like,
Sure.
don't go to the extreme where you, you start doing stuff and then you can't take care of yourself. But, there was always an excuse. And I just started doing it. And the more I
Yeah.
did it, the more, again, I started to like feel my energy come back.
Amazing.
Right?
Amazing.
And that was so important, and it could be as extreme as going somewhere you've always wished to go.
Yeah.
What a beautiful thing. To again, the bike ride, or for me, it was also improv class. Like I did took an improv
Wow.
class. Like,
Very cool. That's fun.
yeah,
Amazing. Did you buy a bike back then or during that time?
yeah, that's when I went to buy. I mean, I did. This is so cliche. I read The Artist's Way, and like it was all about your dates with yourself, and then like making a list of the things you've put aside, and figuring out ways like, when are you going to do it? Like setting the time, right? This weekend at this time. Like this idea that you're just it's gonna happen out of nowhere. I also think makes us feel even more shitty, as if we get to just do things even though we don't actually schedule it. Like it's such a test. Why are we testing ourselves? Why not help ourselves and say, like,
Yeah,
we know
absolutely.
you're good at getting something done depending on how you work. You might be a list person, a physical list. You might be an online list person. I don't know. I'm a calendar person. I need to put it in my calendar. So
Mhm. Let me,
stuff like
let,
that. Yeah.
I just wanted to ask you. So this is maybe seems like a strange question, but I'll explain to you why. So what color was your bike?
Oh God, I don't know. It probably wasn't. I
Okay,
actually don't know. I think it was black and I still have it.
it was
So it
black.
wasn't that
Okay,
interesting. I'm sorry, but it was
wasn't that
cool.
interesting.
Like
Okay,
it was
that's
a
fine.
nice bike though. It was.
Okay. No, that's neat. No, I would just say quickly. So the red bike is the symbol of pin to purpose, right? And there's two
Yeah.
meanings, and it's on my website, but I don't often talk about it on this, but occasionally I bring it up. And it's kind of ironic because another guest had bought a red motorcycle, and I thought, perfect. So the red bike has a lot of symbolism, and along the lines of what you said. Like I had worked in West Africa when I was a student, and it took me 30 years to go back. And I was very upset about that. There were lots of reasons. I was sick when I was there, but I bought a red bike in a market from a garbage picker who was putting together shattered pieces into this beautiful toy. So part of the symbolism of pin to purpose and the red bike moment is we all have shattered pieces at times, but we can all
Yeah.
aspire with the help of others to put it back into something more beautiful. And then a year later, I found out the Muhammad Ali story of the red bike moment. And I'm not sure if you've heard this. I'd
No, I
never heard it,
haven't.
but yeah, it's incredible. I went with so I went with two of my kids to Ghana and bought this red bike. A year later, I went with one of my sons to on a tour of, like, we went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland, the Country Music Hall of Fame in Nashville. We went to Louisville, Kentucky, in the middle, and we went to Muhammad Ali's museum. It's not a museum; it's the Muhammad Ali Center. And the reason he became the greatest and the world champion was when he was 12 years old, or what started him on that path, and he would never have been on that path. 12 years old, his parents bought him a red Schwinn bicycle, and it was stolen outside of like the county fair or something. He went to the police. He was so upset. He told the guy he wanted to beat up the guy if he could find him. The police
Yeah.
officer he met with was Sergeant Joe Martin, one of the best boxing coaches out there, and told him, son, you've got to come with me. Come to my gym tomorrow. You're so upset. You've got to learn to defend yourself if you want to go after somebody, and you got to get your frustrations out. Muhammad Ali would never have gone into boxing, or unless there was some other road like this. There's no reason he would have met Sergeant Joe Martin. There's no
That is
reason.
amazing.
So the red
I
bike
love
moment,
that.
and at the museum, or at the center, Muhammad Ali's, they invite people from around the world to send in their red bike moment, which is purely like a massive setback that led to a new path that helped to fulfill either your destiny or some better future. So
Yeah.
the symbolism of pin to purpose and the red bike is both a bicycle that was made by a garbage picker with several kids who was supporting his family into something more beautiful out of discard what society might discard, but the
Yeah.
individual would say, no, I may be broken temporarily or have some shattered pieces, but I have my dignity, I have my life, and I aspire with the help of others to something more beautiful. And Muhammad Ali, who is the greatest,
Yeah.
invites people to share their own red bike moment. So I'm going on a lot here, but I think it's a very important
No, I
story,
love
and
it.
it's part of the core of this movement, of
Yeah,
this
no, that's
initiative.
so beautiful. I mean, yeah, I think that some of that moment that where I got publicly fired by CBS News was definitely a shattering moment, a shattering of my
Yeah,
ego, of my identity, of everything I'd worked for. And I said to myself, why did I work so hard if this was my destiny? And for the first time I did say to myself in that moment, which thankfully I didn't take it to the next step, but I said, oh, I understand. Like I felt like for the first time, which is like, I understood why someone would feel like maybe what's the point? Like, might as well just take my life. Like
yeah,
that,
yeah,
I didn't, it was like I
yeah,
was on the edge. I thought to myself that,
sure, yeah,
because at that point, everyone was saying, I'm never going to work again. Literally, we tweeted Steve Jobs died before he died. Like there was a rumor. It wasn't even, but like the amount of shit and controversy that it happened because of it was so ridiculous. Even when an apology happened a second later, even when we were saying like that wasn't real, there was a call that came into the newsroom. We shouldn't have tweeted it before we verified it. And I didn't even post that tweet. Like all that. So it just was like it was blown out of proportion, which felt like the nightmare. And then like I wasn't just fired personally one on one. I found out through an article in the Hollywood Reporter, like
Yep.
on a flight. So I wasn't even on land like to even deal with it. Couldn't get in touch with people and then Twitter started, the canceling or, at the time what was cancel culture, it was like you'll never work again. What kind of journalist are you? All of it. My life was shattered. I was like, no one, and then I lost all my brand deals. Like, we're talking about it wasn't even like I was problematic. Like, I'm a lover. It's like I get if that was that. It was just purely an editorial mistake. And then it was just horrible.
Yeah,
By the
no,
time I look
horrendous.
back at it, of course I could speak to it, but I was again heartbroken. Like that's all I could say. And anyway, so that was really, and at the time, I picked myself up and kept working. That was my revenge kind of phoenix rising was like, I'm just gonna put in the work. And we got nominated for an Emmy and all these things happened that were positive, but I
Yep,
still was so hurt by the situation. And
absolutely.
it took me over a decade to get my confidence back, I would say.
Mhm.
And still when I talk about it, it still is a hurt. It hurt, like I get a little bit of a hurt, and maybe that I don't know if that will ever go away because it was just yeah, it was rough. That said, yeah, it took a long time to get my I keep saying self-trust because it was so that was so key to that, where I could also just know that if anything happens, I know I could handle it. I'll be okay. It took me a long time to be able to say that with confidence. And to get my voice back even, I was so s and I still am scared of sometimes like, "Oh, should I write it in this way? Should I post it in that way?" And this is as someone who's on social media. Imagine, like, I'm gonna make myself crazy every moment I'm posting. So
No, it's completely understandable though, because of everything you were dealing with and that trauma. Um, I had another guest on the podcast recently who also helps people advise them with their own self-talk, right? Which is so
yeah.
important because the stigma coming from outside is tough, but then when we're not our own best friend and when we're dealing with things, I mean, I felt that in my own journey of really feeling my own shattered identity for a while
Yeah.
because the business I started, it just wasn't continuing, and the vision I had, I thought it was the best I could bring out there, and yet it was it didn't go where I, it didn't go anywhere. But let me ask you, so the organization you started during COVID, can you talk a bit more about that and how that went? And then come back a bit more. We'll go to Creators for Mental Health.
Yeah, I went on this really life-changing trip to Everest Base Camp in 2019 with a friend of mine, Jordana Reem, who is a meditation guide and coach, and we've known each other for many years. And actually, she had been in the ad business, like advertising, and left that to pursue her own journey, right? And so I always had looked up to her and admired that she was traveling the world now and guiding these trips. She was doing trips in the Himalayas. And so I remember it was 2018 actually. This is that moment I was like, I want to travel again. So I see her in the mountains on Facebook. I said, "Whoa, what are you doing? This is so cool." She goes, "I'm guiding trips in the Himalayas." I go, when's your next one?" "Well, I happen to be posting next week. We're going to Everest Base Camp. Do you want to go?" And I was like, "Oh, it's next year." And the deposit wasn't huge at the time. Sure, why not? Meanwhile, like I didn't ever think about doing something like that, but the opportunity was there. And so fast forward a year later, and not enough training probably later
Mm, mm.
because I didn't really do a lot. I kind of, procrastinated it. And yeah, I was heading to the Nepal and did this 10-day trek to base camp. It was wild, physically, mentally, all of it. And so we got closer there. And then kind of coming out of that trip, I really wanted to figure out how to bring in a lot of the conversations I was having about, again, personal growth and mindfulness and self-awareness and development and all that. How do I bring it to my platform when everyone knows me for being pop culture technology? Like, how do I do that without being cringy? So we started creating content together. And then when COVID hit, she was in Thailand, I was in LA, and she had a bunch of obviously things, retreats and everything canceled. And so she decided to do a virtual retreat. It was the first time we did this on Zoom, very new. And I was really blown away by the power of doing some of this work on even on Zoom at the time. And so we launched out of that like a month later, basically a virtual studio, which was very even early, a few weeks early before a lot of the yoga studios and everyone started using Zoom and all that. And we called it Peace Inside Live. And it was, we had daily classes almost. It was crazy. For a year, I had my radio job. I was doing a radio show. I owned my company, What's Trending. And I was like managing this like virtual studio, donation based. And we had friends and that were, facilitators from around the world doing different types of classes. And it was really cool. And we did a lot of that work for a few years on and off, and then moved into corporate. We were doing customized, you know, wellness experiences for HBO and Capital One and Spotify. And then
Amazing.
kind of as that, yeah, so that was really cool. And I was doing it on the side. It was like my side hustle. Um, and then as the budgets, unfortunately, around that also started to get smaller again, right? Post COVID. Uh, we kind of stopped down and we're like, we're not going to stop what we're doing. We'll take opportunities as they come. But it was starting to get actually, we were burning out on our own, like inner peace, bringing that
It's
to
kind of
people.
ironic, isn't it? But
Well,
it's,
yeah,
yeah,
because we were
understood.
pitching, so many companies were interested, and we were just pitching, 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 and it would go nowhere. And that becomes a lot of the times that burnout and stress comes from you're putting all this energy in and not really getting anything back. And so obviously for me, it wasn't like I wanted to stop doing that, but clearly the way we were doing it wasn't working anymore, which is fine. Everything's meant to have a chapter. It's not supposed to continue forever. And that's okay. And so you also sometimes have to have the realization, you know, going back into mindfulness, not being so holding things so tightly. That defeats the purpose of it instead of letting it flow and seeing where it brings you, right? So I think stopping down and then kind of just seeing where life took both of us. She went into her sound healing world. She does a lot of that with a company called Suka Sound. And then I started doing more advising uh, and then kind of came up with this idea for Creators for Mental Health and did it as a collaborative event, and then decided, you know what, I want this to be its own thing. And that's what I'm doing.
Amazing, amazing. And I'm just trying to remember, because you also you do a variety of things as well, and you're the founder of What's Trending, right? So how does that tie in together? Or, I'll just say, I was thinking about it because Creatives for Mental Health, as you say, it is, I guess it is a wild west. I mean, even for me, I guess I am a creator now. I'm putting out
Yeah.
this podcast, and I never thought of myself like that, but I'm putting it out there and trying to help eliminate stigma. And but I imagine creators at different times, yeah, as opposed to having their eggs in one basket as they're building certain platforms, et cetera, then they are continuing with other work, right? So just any general comments about all of that, because you do multiple things as well.
Yeah, I say being a creator is the ultimate multi-hyphenate. And you're wearing
Okay.
so many hats at once. We're small business owners, basically. And the bridge from What's Trending to Creators for Mental Health is that, I'm a broadcaster, I'm a host and interviewer, could barely speak. But I uh, came up more in digital. I had a foot in traditional media, working with a lot of different kind of traditional media outlets, but I really grew my career on digital very early on, rode that wave in Los Angeles, was an early host on sites and pre-YouTube and all mobile and all that stuff. And then I launched my company, What's Trending, as one of the first live streaming shows kind of for the internet, by the internet, using social media water cooler as a filter for the news, which now is what everyone does. At the time, it was very early. And so I have been a creator for, 2 decades and playing around with the space myself, witnessing it as an entrepreneur and an expert, but it's really based on my lived experience. And then
Mm, mm,
being close to creators as in with what's trending, we'd interview them, we'd tell their stories. And so I got to know a lot of people and through many different generations of creators, because whenever there's a new platform or every few years there's a new crop of young folks that come in. And so through that work and the work I do on my own brand platforms, because I talk a lot about creator economy trends and emerging tech and AI, I'm constantly meeting founders and creatives and creators and um, coming in and out, right? A lot. And so I'm seeing what's working, what's not working, and kind of the patterns that come up and where the attention is going and the money is going.
mm,
And that really informed starting Creators for Mental Health, because I started seeing a pattern and just what I was, again, what I was experiencing in my peers, and especially with young people coming in, and just there being a lack of structure and support. And
mhm,
I said, maybe in the past it was never okay, but maybe in the past I would say, it's so new, but at this point it's not that new. There's enough money going into the space, there's enough businesses launching. At this point, this is irresponsible to ignore that this is happening, right? That these are people that are supporting the industry and workers, but yet have a lack of infrastructure,
mm,
and you're enabling it, right? And so there's only so much I can do as an individual. I'm not Google, I'm not YouTube, I'm not Meta and Instagram. And so, while I would like them to take responsibility for the community that they're constantly asking to create with and alongside, I would love them to take that responsibility. They're not necessarily. And so it's going to have to take, I would say, grassroots community efforts. And I just happen to be in the right place to do it because of, I would say, my age and expertise and having been
mhm,
around. Like,
mhm,
I don't expect other people to do it. I would like other people to do it, but
mhm.
it's not sexy. It's not easy. And it's not like there's immediate income around this. This is just
Sure.
work that needs to be done. So you can't
And
package it into some sort of everyone wants a business model. Everyone wants and the recent newsletter I said after another loss of a community member, I said we
mm,
no more excuses. We keep on, whether it be it's not part of the, your model, you already do something with mental health, this, that. Well, it's not enough. We're losing people and it's not enough. And I'm sorry, I won't tolerate it. I don't and I get just told so many different things. I To be fair, I get a lot of support. A lot of people love what I'm doing. Like, let's not, it's not just all, and these people, even that push back, aren't haters necessarily. I would say they may not understand, and also the narrative might not be the best it can be yet. And that's information for me. How do I make it more, as sharing this stuff, like, more understandable, make people
mm,
get it more, like, take it back to me. What can I control? Okay, that's information. Let me not take it personally. It's hard when it feels very personal, and it's hard when um last week I lost a friend. That makes it hard, because then you keep saying, okay, well, clearly there's more work to be done. And so that's how it brought me to this work. And what also is interesting is, I was going to say something about, well, one, on the other side, people say influencers eye roll. So they don't see it as important, maybe, when most of our news comes from these people. So
sure.
do you want to be getting
Absolutely.
information from people that are unhealthy and unhappy?
Mm, mhm,
And how healthy is that for your children to be consuming content from these
mhm,
people too? Right? Like, this is the standard we're setting for your child. These are their
mhm.
leaders. These are their stars they're watching, right? And so it does have an impact. And also, if 56% of the next generation want to be creators like Gen Z, who knows what Gen
Yeah.
Alpha? I know Gen Alpha, I have a little more hope for 'em right now. But,
Mm,
what kind of environment are we bringing them into? That
absolutely.
is, that, the data, the survey we did, the data shows that it is not supportive of mental health, and that actually the longer you're in it, the worse it gets. So, you know, 1 in 10 creators, according to our study, have suicidal ideation based on their work. 9 out of 10 have no specialized supports.
So
So,
that has to change. Yeah.
you know, it's the
There
data
you
tells
go.
the story. I don't know, the data speaks for itself, but yet again, it just becomes like a lack of urgency. There's such a lack of urgency until it impacts you personally, as we know. And so I wish it wasn't the case, but it
What
is.
for 2026, is there anything you'd want to share about what's coming up for creators for mental health, or what you're hoping, or uh,
Yeah, we're working on more pop-up events. We do these incredible community events. Looking to do maybe some in Canada, some more pop-up events. I'm trying to do an annual summit. It'll be the leading summit for, you know, creators in mental health.
amazing?
For also that brings together, I would say, creators who are the storytellers, obviously, of this
Mm,
generation, organizations, nonprofits, and brands. So
mhm,
the idea is it's the initiative is about self. So it's about
mhm,
supporting the individual, but then it extends to community and advocacy. So there's a lot of work being done around that. And how do we make sure creators are also equipped with the right tools to talk about this stuff responsibly, which is really important.
mhm.
But again, a lot of times there's no lack of that, to be honest. There's tons of organizations setting up creators to do stuff. There's no lack. And there's always could be more. But where I see the biggest gap is, again, they're being used as mouthpieces, or we are, I mean, me too, for all these things, but yet no one is saying, but are you okay? Is there anything you need?
Yes, right, right. So
How are
important,
you?
and yeah,
It's so
absolutely.
you know, how could you support someone else's mental health when you're barely hanging on? Which we do. A lot of
Absolutely.
times we do that and it happens. So more events, more work with platforms. Hopefully we'll be doing more actual partnerships with platforms to move the needle on the, I would say my I dream would be product and community side. We're launching an emergency fund for creators in crisis. So we'll have a
Mm,
nonprofit that if you can't afford therapy, rehab, whatever it is, you could come to us and we could pay for
mhm.
it.
Fantastic,
Uh,
fantastic.
yeah, and then a toolkit for creators in terms of how they communicate with their audiences. So if someone's uh, a community member is in crisis or in need, you have the tools to respond
Mhm,
responsibly. And also, again, a toolkit for the industry. So supporting and training also representation and management and the people around the industry of how, so if they see something they know what to do, they know where to turn, because they're also the ones that are most in contact with these individuals, and they become the only support system sometimes.
huge, huge, huge.
Yeah,
Super important work. It's gonna change and save lives. So,
yeah, that's
um,
my hope. I just want everyone to know how magical they are and what a gift they are in this world, and that I just don't want people to feel alone and that they're going through this alone, and that there is help and there's people that care about them and love them. And again, it goes back to just knowing you are just a magical being and gift, even if you're
mhm,
going through
mhm.
something difficult, that
Yeah,
you deserve to be
absolutely,
here and to
absolutely.
sparkle and be your best, biggest self in this
Yeah.
life.
Love it. Love it. I there's nothing else, unless you want to say anything else. I think that's probably the best way to wrap up an amazing conversation. I hope our listeners and viewers, have been inspired and have been reminded, and are, know of your organization now and where they can reach out. I'll put the information on the YouTube channel, and this is all about shattering stigma and reminding people that there's absolutely no shame when they are challenged to put their hand up, to get a hand up, and going back to what you said, to get back to sparkling and enjoying this miraculous journey we're all on. So
Yeah, and you don't need to do it alone, right? And
absolutely,
it is hard, but again, it doesn't need to be forever.
absolutely, absolutely. Well, thanks so much, Shira. I appreciate you being a guest today, and it's great to meet you, and look forward to talking again sometime.
Yeah,
Thanks
thank
very
you.
much.
So appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah, take care.